You can be anything you want to be in Baldur's Gate 3, including absolute evil. But for all the world of Baldur's Gate 3 is about endlessly open choices, there's one decision you make before you even really start the game that defines exactly how evil you can be. Do you play as the Dark Urge or not? The Dark Urge is one of the game's origin characters, along with pretty much every other recruitable companion. Rather than create your own character, you can choose to play as one of the game's existing characters, seeing the game through their eyes. Most people, at least on a first playthrough, prefer to play with their own character, commonly referred to as Tav. But while you can beat Tav and still meet Shadowheart or Gale and all the rest later on, you won't meet the Dark Urge. You can technically encounter him in a very small way in Act 3, but he's not part of the story. And I can't help thinking about what it would be like if he was. The Dark Urge is so named for the dark urges that compel him to act. You can play as a good person even as the Dark Urge, but you will feel compelled by the urge nonetheless. The character gets unique cutscenes and interactions, some of which are triggered by you making deliberate choices, and some of which happen automatically just by being a big evil dragonborn guy. He's a fascinating part of Baldur's Gate 3, but a lot of players are never going to know that. Even if they played over 2 or 3 more times, people are far more likely to dip into a new class or choose their favourite origin character to ship them with their second favourite origin character, Shadlak Here We Come, than they are to play as a dragonborn they've never heard of whose purpose isn't fully explained, at least not on the starting screen. But missing out on the Dark Urge misses a core part of Baldur's Gate 3. There's only one companion who really feels evil in the game, and that's Minthara. But even then, she's first presented to you as an enemy to kill, and it's only via careful circumvention of this goal, possibly alienating other companions in the process, that you can recruit her at all. You just have to meet Shadowheart by walking forward 10 yards. And then just around the corner you see Gale's arm sticking out of a pole. You don't have to work very hard to get them. And also, fun fact, as the Dark Urge, one of the options will be to tear Gale's arm off, which will trap him in that pole forever. Did say he offered a very different experience. The darkest companion you get naturally is probably Astarion, a vampire who has lured hundreds to their doom. Of course, Astarion repents and wants revenge on the man who forced him into this life, but he remains a morally grey character who approves of cold behaviour more often than Shadowheart or Gale will. Lae'zel too will approve of a cutthroat attitude, but she remains driven by a stern moral compass. Astarion knows he is mischievous and Machiavellian, while Lae'zel believes herself to be good, even if this goodness requires brutality. The Dark Urge is very different. Even more so than Minthara, a black-heart assassin driven by selfishness, the Dark Urge is irredeemably evil. He has compulsions that make him do terrible things, whether he wants to or not. Tearing Gale's arm off, for example, is the result of choosing fantasize about ripping the arm off, but it results in him actually doing the thing, because if he does fantasize about bloodlust, he's powerless to stop it. And wouldn't that be a fascinating companion to have to deal with? As the Dark Urge yourself, you have some agency over what you say and do. Some people choose the fantasize option to see what happens and then save scum when they realize they've stopped themselves from recruiting Gale, but you do have the option to just not do it at all. You need to unleash the urge in places, but there's a lot of choice, as you would expect from the player character. What would happen if he didn't have control? Taking the Dark Urge anywhere would be dangerous business. He could leap from the background role companions usually have in negotiations, interrupting your conversations with Carnage. If you've ever played Dungeons & Dragons with a big group, you'll know that one unhinged player can derail entire story arcs, but often for the better. Having someone unpredictable like the Dark Urge adds a new flavour to events, and while an important part of Baldur's Gate 3 is telling the story your way, it would add even more depth and replayability if the Dark Urge had the chance to burst forward and wreck everything. These ideas are already in the game, and while I'm sure it would take a lot of work to get the Dark Urge into a companion mold, the fact that these options exist suggests there's a chance, or at least there might have been. We now know there's no expansions coming for Baldur's Gate 3, and Larian won't even be helming any sequels, so it's unlikely we see the Dark Urge again. While some of the characters may still pop up in future Baldur's Gate installments, it's more likely to be the most popular characters that people meet on their TAV run through. If you want to experience life as the Dark Urge, you've got to do it firsthand by playing as him in a future playthrough. We don't have a lot of evil companions in these sorts of games. I've written about the need for bad companions, as in the ones you don't like, but evil and repulsive squad mates are rare. You get the Astarion and the Lae'zel shades of I like it when you say mean jokes, but there's nothing really like the Dark Urge. Maybe it's a Dark Urge of my own, but I'd love to have seen how Baldur's Gate 3 would look with him by my side.